Now that a conservative effort to suppress classroom lessons about racism and slavery. The Times reporting on nearly a dozen Republican-led states seeking to ban or limit how the role of slavery and the pervasive effects of racism can be taught. Fox News goes all in on the issue.
A curriculum that teaches their kids to hate their country.
The political left, in perpetuating this myth that America is a fundamentally racist country.
Joe Biden now wants to spend your money on critical race theory lessons for our country's already distressed students.
Last month, the Department of Education proposed a regulation that directs tax dollars to the race hustlers who traffic in this poison.
Tucker is the last person who should be talking about any form of trafficking. Now, parts of academia are aligning with the right-wing rhetoric, and in doing so, exhibiting cowardice and a lack of integrity. Case in point, the explosive fight over the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones, a recipient of the MacArthur Fellowship Genius Grant. They don't hand those out to everybody, whose 1619 project famously looked at the legacy of U.S. slavery, and who this year was appointed the prestigious Knight Chair in Race and Investigative Journalism at the University of North Carolina, which is usually a tenured job, except not this time. In a highly unusual step, the university's Board of Trustees denied Hannah-Jones tenure, breaking with the recommendation of the actual journalism department that was hiring her. It's already provoking a backlash. The UNC board claiming today Hannah-Jones has a limited, quote-unquote, academic background, even though she received her master's degree from, wait for it, University of North Carolina, which I should note is also my alma mater where I got my doctorate, and I know the difficulty that they put people through. So what's really going on here? Well, first, there's the larger issue of diversity in academia. It's important to note just 5% of tenured professors at bachelor's universities in America are black. There are a larger percentage of African-American astronauts than black people who are tenured in this country. It's easier for us to get shot into space than actually teach undergrads. But there's also the cowardice element. The university supposedly committed to the free exchange of ideas, which is now afraid of what Nikole Hannah-Jones might say in the classroom. It would prefer to bend to politicians like Mitch McConnell, who is on a crusade against the 1619 Project, which I'm sure he hasn't read, and those voices over on, the crazy place, Fox.
The entirely fraudulent 1619 Project headed by Nikole Hannah-Jones.
This Hannah-Jones dispute leads to a larger question. Why was a woman who distorts history even up for a tenure position at any university in the first place?
That might be the largest number of black people they've ever had on their shows. Joining me now is New Yorker staff writer and professor of journalism at Columbia University, Jelani Cobb, and editor-at-large for the 19th and an MSNBC contributor, Aaron Haynes. I can't wait to have this discussion with both of you today. Aaron, I'm going to start with you. You wrote really one of the first pieces that people were paying attention to in the 19th about UNC's board stepping in and stopping the department from offering tenure to Hannah Nikole Jones. But you also say this is part of a larger problem that we've got happening all across America right now?
Well, yes. And Jason, let me just stop you there. My colleague Mariel Padilla wrote that story for the 19th. But I'm glad that we had it on our site because it absolutely is in the wheelhouse of what we care about at the 19th. But listen, I am based in Philadelphia, where we love telling stories about the framers, the founding fathers, right? When it comes to folks like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, we can't tell that story about America enough, right? But when it comes to slavery, oh, why can't we move on? Let's move on. And as somebody who's long covered race issues, this backlash against telling the truth, I heard Laura Ingraham say, call it distorting history, but actually correcting the record is something that this is usually the reaction to that from some corners of the country who really do not want to confront that history in our country. And listen, if journalism is about afflicting the comfortable, Professor Hannah-Jones has certainly struck a nerve here. That is a nerve that has been struck among members of Congress. It is a nerve that has been struck among, folks at the State House level that are trying to ban 1619 from curriculums at the state level. And now it appears to have struck a nerve with these folks at the North Carolina University system who, feel that somebody who is frankly overqualified and whose credentials would certainly stack up, I would think, against any of the Knight chairs that are teaching journalism at their esteemed program of which she is, an alum, are now somehow, shifting the goalpost and changing the rules.
I want to follow up on this. So you've got all these state governments who are like, we're going to stop the teaching of the 1619 Project, which to me is equivalent of saying we're going to stop ninja lessons in gym, right? Like what is the school system that's demanding that students learn the 1619 Project? It seems to me that a lot of this anger is simply about the existence of the work because they can't seem to show any examples of where white kids in America are being taught to hate themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, look. Yeah, so this is the Pulitzer Center, offer this curriculum to school districts across this country, many of whom took them up on that offer, right? Because they are trying to fill in the gaps that, frankly, a lot of our Black mothers and fathers had to do for us because we were not learning the full U.S. history when we, were in elementary, middle, high school, college in some cases, unless we were seeking that out on their own or unless, our families were filling in those gaps for us. This was not history that was being taught. And so, now that this is available for folks, there are folks at the state level, as there have been folks at the state level. Look, the Daughters of the Confederacy didn't want the Civil War talked about, didn't want slavery talked about in certain terms that were mean or ugly or hurtful to the country or to certain Americans. So, yeah, this is certainly part of a long history of really trying to keep that history away from folks. And really, all Americans are the worst for not really having a fuller picture of who we and where we are as a country.
Right. And the Pulitzer Center offering it is not the same thing as it necessarily being required. It's an offer. It doesn't mean that, kids are necessarily being indoctrinated. Jelani, I want to bring this out to sort of a larger discussion. This is, you're a history professor. This seems like a larger problem that we see about how Black excellence is treated. Right? This is reminiscent of when the University of Arizona brought President Obama in 2009 and said, we want you to be our keynote speaker, but we don't want to offer you a degree. No shade to anybody who went to the University of Arizona. But if you think the President of the United States is good enough to come to your school, I think it's good enough to give him an honorary degree. As a scholar and as an academic, how do you look at the nuances of the fact that the board is okay with having Ms. Hannah-Jones there, but they just don't want to give her tenure?
Well, I think they weren't really okay with having Ms. Hannah-Jones there. That happened through the machinations of the other layers at the institution that are really intent on having her presence on campus for reasons that make a lot of sense. But the fact of the matter is that if we went through her credentials, which include a MacArthur Genius Award, a Pulitzer Prize, 2 Polk Awards, a Peabody Award, and 3 National Magazine Awards. So, Jason, you and I have been around academia for a long time. Correct me if I'm lying when I say that would be an impressive total for a department.
Yes,
if you
exactly.
That many accolades in your department, you would be doing well. This is one individual. So absurdly overqualified for the position that it only makes more glaring the illogic of the position that the board took. And so this is absolutely about that. And one other thing that I'll add really quickly is that this is an attempt to re-enshrine the syllabus of lies about the American past that were a rationale for white supremacy. There has been an ongoing assault. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about this. He called it the propaganda of history. And you should go back and read that essay in Black Reconstruction. This has been the fundamental calling of Black historians in this country to add a corrective to the record so that we might actually present a brief for non-racial democracy in this country. So this is why this is a much bigger issue than a single tenure case at a single institution. This is about democracy, this is about academic freedom, and this is about freedom of the press.
And as our mutual colleague Adam Sewer recently wrote in The Atlantic, using the state to try and suppress this information, it's not going to work. This will simply make us fight harder. Thank you guys so much. Jelani Cobb, Aaron Haynes, thank you so very much. That does it for me. Ari is back on Monday. The Readout with Joy Reid is up next.